2 T's. Remember what any of these stand for? Yep, you get title both. Some folks will put title revisited. I'm just going to write title because why waste words? We're going to TP. You can put it on there. We're going to TP cast the poem. So I would, at the very least, if you want to put this under the poem, fine. Leave some room next to the poem. We'll do some paraphrase stuff.
P is purpose.
Not purpose. I just said it. Paraphrase. No. The A is close to tone, though. The A is attitude.
The T is
Theme. C and S.
C connotation.
Yep. And then, no. Good. That's usually the and it's not symbolism. Shift. It doesn't mean necessarily by going through this that every single poem is going to have like a shift or whatnot, although a lot of them tend to. This one will. Title's on there twice, and the idea is this is the order in which you do it. First thing you do is you take a look at the title and you start to think about it, which we'll do with There Was a Boy. Then you paraphrase. I don't think you need to go word for word. I don't think you need to go line by line. What I tend to do is take groups of lines. If you have a stanza, you can paraphrase the stanza. In this case, we can take like 4 or 5 lines at a time and just kind of write what's going on. But basically, you're giving yourself a little summary. Connotation, you're taking a look at individual words. So you could kind of think of it as like an addiction way. What type of word are you dealing with? It also could be words that you're not familiar with. It could be words that for whatever reason they stand out, so there could be some symbolic value to them. You could just be going, I like that word, it's neat, and just identifying that way. Attitude is going to be a little bit more of a tone. AP multiple choice questions, passages, there usually tends to be at least one tone question. They'll identify the tone of the passage as a whole, so that would be one you would want to think about. You could have a variety of shifts. You could have shifts in location. You could have shifts in speaker. You could have shift in time. There could be some thematic shifts, but you're basically looking for any kind of change. Theme, I think we're pretty good with that universal idea. And then Byron, the title's on there twice because after going through the whole process, sometimes, not always, but sometimes then the title might have a little bit more meaning significance that you didn't pick up on the first time. Because technically when you're looking at the title the first time, you haven't even read the title. It's not that after reading this you're going to go, oh, there was a boy, but now there's a girl, or something, like that. It's still going to be, there was a boy, maybe we have a better idea as to what the poem's about though. There's a boy. Any questions about TP casts? At least what they stand for, what they mean. We'll go through and do it. So when next week you're going to get your first poem that we will take a quiz on. You can use that poem on the quiz. I'm not collecting the poem for TP cast points or anything like that. I think it's a good idea, so I recommend it, but I'm not collecting it as a purpose. I don't think anyone would mean that. Hey, shortly after doing a TWA.
No, I'm scarred for life after seeing that 2 whole pages.
So, there was a boy. Anything within the title that you identify as that might be significant.
Boy.
Okay, let's take a look at the poem. Verbs past tense. We don't know. So, reasons why it could be in past tense. Could have death. Again, we don't know. Could be that he's not a boy, but now he's maybe a man. Still question mark because we don't know. silence, then the poet's probably doing what? Some kind of looking back, whether it be flashback or simply looking back to a previous time, but essentially you're looking back. Then you run through and you paraphrase. I would pretty much probably go in 5, 6 lines at a time wherever there's a natural break. So I'm going to do the first 6 lines. When you read poetry, pay attention to punctuation. You don't have to stop at the end of the line just because it's at the end of the line. So if you have a semicolon like you do with line number 6, that would be a place to stop. But if you're taking a look at like line 1 or line 3, you don't have punctuation, you just keep on going. So it should be still there was a boy, there was a boy. There was a boy, you knew him well, ye cliffs and islands of Wennander. Wennander is British Isles. Many a time at evening, when the earliest stars began to move along the edges of the hills, rising or setting, would he stand alone beneath the trees or by a glimmering lake. So we got a boy. What's he doing? Hanging out by the lake at night, stars, all this nice stuff.
It's a pretty neat thing.
If I can paraphrase 6 lines in 1 sentence, fine. I know what's going on at least.
Boy chilling.
And there, with fingers interwoven, both hands pressed closely palm to palm and to his mouth uplifted, he, as through an instrument, blew mimic hootings to silent owls that they might answer him. So he's standing by the lake, and he's going... I can't do owl hoots, but... whatever. And owl. You do get bonus points for participation while you take your quiz if you do your owl sound.
Wait, we're doing a quiz on this one.
No, you're not. Well, we'll do a sample one. You're not doing a graded one for this.
I do it.
So, boy by lake, making owl sounds, and hoping what? Hoping they will answer him. And they would shout across the watery vale and shout again, responsive to his call, with quivering peals and long halloos and screams and echoes loud, redoubled and redoubled, concourse wild of yoke and din. So he calls out to the owls, and what do the owls do? They call back, so the owls respond. So he's good at making his owl noises.
I'm just joking.
It's a good question. Do you know what din is?
Yeah, like noise.
Din, din is noise. So, part of speech for yokin, it's an adjective, so it's describing. Any guesses? Joyful? Loud? We'll figure it out. And when there came a pause of such silence, such as baffled his best skill, then sometimes in that silence, while he hung listening, a gentle shock of mild surprise is carried far into his heart of mountain torrents. What in this part, and when there came a pause of silence, such as baffled his best skill, you could identify that as what part from the teepee cat? There is a shift. You're going from this noise. We don't maybe know what yoking is for sure, but we know there's a noise. But now we have a shift to silence. So it went from him shouting out to the owls, owls responding to can't hear anything. Then sometimes in that silence, while he hung listening, A gentle shock of mild surprise has carried far into his heart the voice of mountain torrents, or the visible scene would enter unawares into his mind with all its solemn imagery, its rocks, its woods, and that uncertain heaven received into the bosom of the steady lake. This is the part where folks usually go, I'm not quite as sure or certain about what's happening in the poem. I do think for connotation, you do have some fairly significant words popping up. Silence would be one to kind of think about because there's that pause. Solemn imagery, bosom of the steady lake. Kind of get more poetic diction word choice with those, at least from a tone standpoint, because it seems to be a little bit more playful early on. Any ideas for like a shift in tone that might be happening in those latter lines?
Sounds pretty solemn, like introspective.
Okay, certainly seems like more serious.
Yeah.
So introspective. Where is he standing? By the lake. Nature. What could kind of be happening? Allie, what'd you say? So it's becoming night. You might be dealing with, kind of taking it all in. If you're standing outside and there's total silence and it's becoming night, you're seeing reflection in the lake. So introspective, philosophical, kind of like that meditation kind of, element is starting to come in. Certainly seems to be at least maybe taking in nature. But it goes from that playful idea to something that's at least a little bit more serious. In a situation like this, where the last few lines might not be entirely sure, many times the questions that you get on the poetry quiz can kind of help you figure it out too. It's always nice knowing exactly what's happening with the poem beforehand. But if you do have some areas where you're unsure, take a look at the questions, take a look at the answers. You might start to see some patterns taking shape that would kind of lead you in the right direction of what it could be. So I have the questions for you. We got about 8 minutes. I don't think we're going to have time to go over them today, but if you answer all the questions in class today, you've answered them in the appropriate amount of time that you would need for like a quiz. There is a poem and questions on the back. I'm not worried about that. We're just looking at 1 through 8 that is on the front. So, let's see if I can review. So only worried about numbers 1 to 8. Don't worry about the Robert Frost poem on the back.